Without two of their top defensemen, the Tampa Bay Lightning finished off a four-game road trip with 3 wins, including a 5-1 Saturday win over the Seattle Kraken. We'll break down that game and talk about the Lightning defense on today's episode of Locked On Lightning.
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Josh Sperber here, welcoming you to Locked On Lightning and thanking you all for making Locked On Lightning your first listen every day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And if your team is the Tampa Bay Lightning, then this is the show for you. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. That's LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off of your first purchase. And a great road trip for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Starting it off with a victory last week in Vancouver, a loss to Edmonton, a dominant win against Calgary, and then another dominant win, this time against the Seattle Kraken. So the Lightning worked their way down the Pacific Division and came out with 4 wins. And honestly, all of them were winnable games. They certainly had a chance. They certainly had their chances again against Edmonton, but this win against the Kraken might be the biggest and best for the Lightning so far. Maybe even in the entire season. I definitely say on this road trip. And that's mainly because in this game, they had missed Cernak for almost the entire road trip. He actually got back into the game. This game, they were out both J.J. Moser and Victor Hedman. The entire Lightning first-line defense on a regular basis out against Seattle. Andrei Vasilevsky was taking the night off on the last game of a 4-game road trip where every game was one day after the next one. So Jonas Johansson's in, and he only lets up 1 goal in 22 shots on a power play. Fantastic defensive effort from the Tampa Bay Lightning to get their goals. And we'll talk about the goals a little bit more later on. Brandon Hagel with 2, a goal and an assist for Jake Guentzel and Brayden Point. Guentzel has goals in 6 straight games, tied for the second longest in a player's first season with the Lightning, behind only Brian Bradley, the Lightning first All-Star legend. And Guentzel, already a Four Nations guy for America for the Lightning, and getting another goal. We'll see if he gets one on Tuesday at home against Columbus. Luke Glendening also contributed an assist. Nikita Kucherov contributed 2 assists for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And the penalty battle, they won in terms of fewest penalty minutes, but Seattle able to capitalize on one of their 2 power plays. Lightning only on 1 of 3, but still, I think getting that power play goal is always going to be a good thing for Tampa. I think that this is a team that is so strong on offense that you want them to just take advantage of every chance they have on the power plays. Stamkos or not, the Lightning still have some heavy hitters coming from the goals. You know, Brayden Point has shown that he's been great on the power play. We talked about that on Friday. Penalty kill and power play, usually on the second line, but Cirelli and Hagel are guys that can fire it in. Obviously, Kucherov as well. I mean, the Lightning still have guys on the power play, and any NHL team that is, you know, sleeping on them a little bit just because Stamkos left on the power play has quickly been proving wrong, mainly in December after a tough opening, and November after a tough opening month of the season. When it came to the power play, the Lightning are now in the top 10 in power play percentage in the entire NHL. A big moment in today's game was Declan Carlisle, a goal in his second NHL game. He has played with some Lightning players over his career in Tampa's system, a little bit with Gage Gonzalez, who he is living with, or he was with Tampa. Emil Littleberg, Steve Santini. I mean, he had been around the Lightning team, but only played his second NHL game on Saturday in the final 30 seconds, I should say. He got a goal. Declan Carlisle was lauded by his teammates, and John Cooper was talking about how everyone he got up. It was 4-1 at the time of the goal. Carlisle, that's his first NHL strike to make it 5-1, and the Lightning just erupted for one of their newest players. And that's a team that it really stands by some of the younger guys, some of the AHL guys. I mean, you saw how Connor Geekie was so easily welcomed into the Tampa Bay Lightning family, into their clubhouse, and has already been such a big part of the team, learning from the vets. And it's really the same. It just is passed on down the line. Any AHL call up is really going to be treated like it should be. The Lightning are, I think, a team that has such good team morale and team chemistry that it honestly makes things easier for these AHL guys and these younger guys who haven't had as much experience playing on the NHL level. It makes it a lot easier for them to just acclimate and just already feel part of the team, because both Santini and Declan Carlisle played their first NHL game in quite some time. And neither of them looked like they missed a beat on defense. Carlisle, especially, with that late goal contributing on the other end. But, I mean, this was just such a big win for Tampa. I think, you're playing without your captain. You're playing in this is Cernak had missed the last 2 games because of injury. You never know how that's going to end up working out. But the Lightning stepped up. This is a game that they were playing some AHL guys. They were playing their backup goalie. And frankly, they changed. They moved to 3 different cities on the west coast of Canada, not easy trips between them. And then they go to Seattle, and now they go home, all in the span of about 2 weeks. It's a long trip. I mean, that can really weigh on them. And the Lightning saved their best games in terms of goal differential for the last 2. And that, I think, is a big, big positive. And it means bodes well for the Lightning going forward. These road trips like these have a chance to kill momentum, have a chance to kind of humble teams and make them realize how much difficult it is to play on the road. Across the country, very different weather than they have in Tampa Bay as well, though that is obviously less important when it comes to hockey. The Lightning still got it done. They stepped up, knowing they weren't going to have Vasilevsky, knowing that they're missing, particularly on defense, a lot of their regular starters. But the whole team just came together. The offense was mostly intact per their normal roster. And it was the defense that was down a little bit in terms of players, but they still stepped up. Is Seattle one of the better offensive teams in the league? Probably not. That might have helped, but it doesn't matter who you're playing. An NHL team can still be playing the worst team in the NHL. Not having your regular guys, not having your regular leadership it's just different. I mean, it's not an easy thing to go through. For the coaches, they have to really draw things up differently when it comes to lines. The players have to go from players that they're used to playing with to guys that they might not have ever played a game with. And the Lightning have been able to swap pieces in and out of their NHL roster without missing anything. The AHL guys that have come on have really stepped up and showed that they can play on the NHL level with the Lightning. Declan Carlisle was only in his second NHL game. Steven Santini hadn't played in the league since before 2020. Just not a lot of guys with 2 guys with not a lot of NHL experience that ended up being really solid defenders and part of the team. You just really like to see that. And that is something that we're going to talk about a little bit more in the next segment. The Lightning defense has been a popular topic of conversation for Tampa Bay over the course of the season. There are certainly some losses that you can attribute to a lack of defensive effort. I don't know if that would be the case on this particular road trip, but you can certainly attribute last night's win as well as a couple other of this West Coast swing to the Lightning defense. And there have been a lot of moving pieces there with some injuries in the last couple weeks. So we're going to go over the state of the Lightning defense. How ready are they for the rest, I guess, of December? Game Time is focused on togetherness this holiday season. That means when you bring people together at live events, the experience is that much better, and it's the perfect gift. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Curation makes it easier to save more money on sports, concerts, comedy, and everything on Game Time picks. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL, spelled LOCKDONNHL, and that'll get you $20 off. So make sure to download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. And let's go over the Tampa Bay Lightning defense. Tampa allowing a 1-goal performance, no even strength goals for the Seattle Kraken. That came in the first period. The Tampa Bay Lightning got the next 5 goals after that. After Montour, the Kraken defender, scored their first goal. And we talked about it a little bit in that opening segment. The Lightning defense has been going through it in terms of injuries over these last couple games. There's really no two ways about it. Early on during this road trip, Erik Cernak was taken out of a game early on. He got back in, and that is a big step for Lightning. It's why Steven Santini didn't end up playing in the game. He was a scratch because Cernak was able to get back. He and McDonough did a good job on that first-line defense, but that first-line defense without Victor Hedman and J.J. Moser did take a big hit. McDonough and Cernak able to fill in successfully, but that's obviously something the Lightning don't want for the rest of the season. Good news, potentially, though, is the 2 Lightning defenders that were called up from the crunch over the last couple weeks, Declan Carlisle and Steven Santini, have both been returned to Syracuse. So they will be on the Syracuse crunch for the time being, which I am hoping means that more players are back. Getting Cernak back for the Kraken game was definitely a big lift. And now you've got Moser and Hedman, who might be the 2 best defenders on the Lightning. The Lightning are fortunate that their second line could honestly be a first line on a couple of teams. You've got 2 top 4 defensemen easily in Ryan McDonough and Erik Cernak. And I don't mean like top 4 in the league. They're some of the 2. I mean, just, you want those 2 guys in your top 4 lines. McDonough and Cernak have been such an excellent pair, and they were able to fill in well for the usual duo of Moser and Hedman. But, I mean, you just keep looking at some of the defensive stats from this game against the Kraken, and it just makes you feel that much more confident about the team. Declan Carlisle got the fewest amount of shifts at 18. Erik Cernak, Emil Lilleberg, Darren Radish, all the 6 Lightning defensemen who played received a plus-minus of at least 1. It was +1 for Carlisle, Lilleberg, Perbix, and Cernak, +2 for Radish and McDonough. And to do that in front of Jonas Johansson, who in his he's had a couple of tough games. He was in that 8-5 game against the Devils. The Lightning's won, but they played really well for him, and Johannes really stepped up. Even Brandon Hagel gave a big shout out to the Lightning backup goalie in Jonas Johansson, who, played a really good game, stood on his head. And it's great that the Lightning are able to have a backup goalie that they can count on without Andrei Vasilevskiy. Because, Vazzy's probably going to play more games than most, if not any other goalie in the NHL this season. But Johansson has showed that he's been a capable backup whenever Vasilevskiy needs to take a rest, or hopefully not. But if he's injured like he was at the start of last season, they've got someone that they can step up to. And the Lightning have shown that defensively, it's about the same. You look at some of those guys on the crunch. I've talked a lot about Derek Pouliot because I think he's someone that I really think could make an impact on the Lightning roster this season. Toby Paquette-Bisson is another youngster defender for this Tampa Bay Lightning team. Dylan Gill, one of their rookies. And, of course, Declan Carlisle. Tyson Feiss has had a really solid season. I think Lightning's defense is definitely the past couple of games has improved, because at the beginning of the season, there showed a lot of games, and a lot of those losses, it was on the defense. Not all of them, but a lot. That game against the Capitals was a rough one defensively. Later in the game against the Stars, the Leafs, there haven't been too many games where the Lightning have just been lights out on defense, and I think this is really one of them. And seeing them do that without Hedman or without Moser, huge. So hopefully that these two guys getting sent down means better things for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Hopefully it means that Hedman's going to come back and Moser is going to come back, so the Lightning can, close out this holiday season at home with some of their top defenders. Lightning have 3 home games in the next week, give or take, including that 22nd game against Florida. They've got a home and home there before Christmas and Hanukkah. 2 games next week, or this coming week, I should say, which I'll be at. And I think these next games are going to be pretty telling about the defense. You've got 2 matchups that I think are a bit easier for Tampa Bay. The Blue Jackets have been one of the worst teams in the league. They're currently sitting at last in the Metropolitan Division. And the St. Louis Blues haven't been too much better. Blue Jackets have 29 points in 8th place in the Metropolitan. St. Louis Blues, 31 points, has them 6th in the Central Division of the Western Conference. And part of that might just mean that it's a little more top-heavy in that Central Division. The Predators and Blackhawks, the bottom 2. But St. Louis is about 500, 14-14, with 3 other losses in overtime, a goal differential of -15. So the games kind of increase in skill-wise over the next 3 for Tampa, with a home and home against Florida, bringing what is not necessarily a final test for this Lightning's improved defense, but the Lightning have played better defensively over the last couple games. And it's not something that is so easy to just lock in on a trend, because there are going to be some games where you're simply going to get outplayed by the offensive players. And that has not happened against Tampa in the last couple of games. And I'm hoping that they can continue their defensive run in these 2 home games against the Blues and the Blue Jackets, 2 teams that, frankly, you'd think the Lightning are expected to beat. And then the really tough rivalry games against the Florida Panthers, I think, is going to be the ultimate test of the Tampa Bay Lightning defense. Right now, Florida is 2nd in the Atlantic Division standings, currently tied in points with Toronto, but 1 more loss in 1 more games puts them just 1 behind the Maple Leafs. And a lot of people think that those are going to be the 2 teams that are going to be fighting for first place in the Atlantic Division. The Bruins are still hanging around. The Lightning are still hanging around. I think it's definitely too early to call who's going to be the leader of the Atlantic, but I think it's safe to say that you can consider the Panthers a favorite for that. And I think the Lightning are really gonna have to test themselves against Florida. You certainly hope that Hedman and Moser are going to be back for those games against Florida. Lightning played them a couple times in the preseason, and it will be the first 2 games that they play each other in the regular season as well. But luckily the Lightning offense has been really stepping up while the defense has been dealing with these rash of injuries. But Moser didn't play yesterday. Hedman didn't play yesterday, and Lightning are certainly going to hope that needs to change. There's obviously not much that can be done. There's only so much that the elite training staff and medical team for the Lightning can do with some of these injuries, but injuries are a part of the game. And John Cooper has acknowledged, I think after every game in this road trip, that it's just difficult to go through a trip with this many injuries. But I think that even though the Lightning defense might have been hit the hardest by the injury bug in this particular go-around, they stepped up the most over this road trip and really helped keep the Lightning in games against some tough teams without some of their best players, with a pretty patchwork Lightning defense, with a third of them from the AHL, and without arguably their best 2 defenders, and obviously their first line defenders, with one of them happening to be their team captain. So you got to give a lot of credit to the Lightning defense over these last couple of games, and you really hope that they can keep it up with St. Louis and Columbus leaning more towards the bottom of the league. I think St. Louis is going to be a little tougher. Neither of these games are games that the Lightning can take lightly. We'll talk a little bit more about those tomorrow, particularly the Blue Jackets games, as it comes up on Tuesday. But we talked about the Lightning defense in this last segment. Now we're going to take a little turn to the offense. I won't lie, I wanted to make this segment entirely about Brayden Point, as he is currently the goal leader of the Lightning and on an absolute heater with 15 points in his last 5 games. Will he end up as the Lightning scoring leader when the season ends? Will try to answer that question as best we can when we return. Get ready to tackle the NHL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place bets on the NHL all in one place. So, when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That is FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for multiple times? Well, that certainly happened to me. I've had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy for me to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions. It monitors your spending and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together all in one convenient place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year financially. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. For me, one of the best features is the subscription tracker. I've used it to cancel services I wasn't using anymore, and I already saved a ton. Plus, with their goals feature, I've been able to automatically set aside money for my future, so no more stretching about budgeting every month for me. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon, rocketmoney.com/lockedon. We'll talk about the offense now. Defense wins championships, but offense score goals, and that is not something the Lightning have been short of this season. The last 2 games, they have put up 13 goals and a total of 18 over 4 games. 4.5 goals per game on a road trip is incredible for any team. And for the Tampa Bay Lightning, no exception. They have 2 players in the top 10 of the league in goals scored, with Brayden Point tied with Kirill Kaprizov, the Hart Trophy favorite currently, second in the league with 2 goals scored. Jake Guentzel has 17. He is tied for 7th. The Tampa Bay Lightning also have Nikita Kucherov, who is second among all players in assists, and Victor Hedman, who is tied for 5th with Zach Werenski and Shea Theodore for 5th in the NHL with 21 assists on the season. So you have that combination of assists, that big 3 of Kucherov, those big 2 players of Kucherov and Hedman, with really a big 3 scorers of that first line. Jake Guentzel, Brayden Point, Nikita Kucherov. I mean, you got to give Brandon Hagel some love on that list as well, because he has been an elite goal scorer for the Lightning this season, as he currently places 3rd behind Point and Guentzel with 15 goals this season. At the beginning of the season, when I was making my Lightning predictions, I expected that Brayden Point would lead the Tampa Bay Lightning in goals. I'm going to amend that prediction a little bit. I still think he's going to lead the Tampa Bay Lightning in goals, but if he keeps going on the run he's going on, he might just win the Rocket Richard Trophy as well. He absolutely has that kind of goal scoring potential. Called a superstar by his coach after the game against the Kraken, Point has been on an absolute tear for the Tampa Bay Lightning lately, netting key goals as he leads the team in goals on the power play, which he also leads the league at. 4 goals and 11 assists over the last 5 for Point. Second on the team in goals over that span to Jake Guentzel, who has 7 in his 7-game goal streak, and 11 assists for Brayden Point over his last 5. And that, I mean, just excellent. The power play for the Lightning is a big reason why I think Pointer is going to end up as the Lightning team lead, and also maybe on the top of the Rocket Richard Trophy standings as well. As of right now, the Lightning have the 3rd best power play in the league, converting on almost 30% of their extra man opportunities, and Brayden Point has a whopping lead in power play goals coming on the Lightning. He has 11. The next closest, Jake Guentzel, has 7. So Brayden Point combined has almost has the same amount of power play goals as the rest of his team. The Lightning have 7 players with power play goals for a grand total of 24 power play goals on the season. Brayden Point has almost half of those. 11. The next closest, Guentzel, was 7. After that, Cirelli with 2. He's going to keep racking up those power play goals. That's been a big part of Brayden Point's game. That can just keep tacking up. I mean, the Lightning, if they draw enough penalties, it can really, we can see multiple goal games for Point almost every night. I mean, it just seems like he's on that kind of pace right now. He has got a really solid slap shot, and I've said this time and time again, but I don't think there's anybody better than Point in close range at the net. Just he is a magnet for loose pucks, and he always seems to be able to find a way to put them in the net. I think for those reasons, I'm going to stick with my prediction of him leading the Lightning in goals for the rest of the season. And honestly, he's on Rocket Richard wash now. Currently, it's Leon Draisaitl, who is the leader in goals with 22, 2 more than Brayden Point. But if Point stays healthy, he can unquestionably take the Rocket Richard Trophy home. Nikita Kucherov is still a guy who I think is going to be up there for the Art Ross Trophy, and I just think that the way that Guentzel and Point are playing, Kuch's focus is going to be a lot more on passing over the rest of the season. And he's still Nikita Kucherov. He's still one of the best players in the league. 32 assists. Next closest, Victor Hedman with 21. Kucherov is just that good. I mean, head and shoulders, he's better than most players in the entire NHL right now. Putting the puck in the net, scoring, assisting, doesn't matter. He just finds ways to create chances. And when you have 2 out of 3 guys on your line, the other 2 guys on Kucherov's line that are scoring at an absolutely elite level right now, a player like Kucherov is going to adjust and look for those guys to get open more. He's going to focus on finding Point and close, finding Guentzel, who can just get to wherever he wants to on the ice and keep racking up with those assists. He's definitely going to lead the Lightning in assists. Might be some awards on his horizon as well. Jake Guentzel is, I think, the only person who can really challenge Point in terms of the goal scoring lead. Brandon Hagel is. And I say that because he's had some runs where he's put up just series after series of multi-point games. Really looks like Hagel is in the midst of a breakout season. If one of those top line guys goes, he's going to be the first guy to get elevated to that top line. But right now, I mean, he's playing he's not playing as much as Point, Guentzel, and Kucherov. So I think the only reason that right now I might not want to pick Brandon Hagel as the guy who's going to end up leading the Lightning in scoring is only because he's on line 2. He's going to end up right up there. I really think that because Kucherov is just going to be passing the puck more, and right now, Point has 20 to lead the Lightning. Guentzel has 17 in second. Hagel has 15 in third. Now, he has played 2 more goals than Nikita Kucherov, but he has just been that good this season. Hagel, just everything seems to be going right for Brandon Hagel this season. He has been such a key part of the Lightning offense. Is one of the big reasons that they're set up in as good a position as they are at this point in the season. And I think that he might just be getting more and more playing time. He might go onto the first line just because he's too good to be on the second line, even though that's the case for Guentzel as well. But Hagel's definitely the dark horse in that. I mean, you got to look to first liners for goal scoring. But if there's anyone not on the Lightning first line that's going to lead the team in goals, I'd say it's going to be Brandon Hagel. I still think that honor is going to go to Brayden Point. That doesn't change, from my opinion, from the beginning of the season. But what does change is that he is putting himself in very good position to win the Rocket Richard Trophy. I'm not going to say that it's now or never for Point. I certainly think he'll have some more chances. He's 28, very young, but this year could be his year for that. So we'll see if Brayden Point not only leads the Lightning in scores, but if he leads the NHL in goals as well. And we'll have more to talk about tomorrow, but that is going to do it for today's show. Josh Sperber once again here, thanking all of you for making Locked On Lightning your first listen today. Now for your second listen, find Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And wherever you've listened to today's podcast or watched it if you're on YouTube, please give us a subscribe, a like, a follow. Just show your support. We do the show for you guys, the fans, and really appreciate when you guys show love back. So thank you all once again for tuning in. Hope you guys have a great holiday season, and go Bolts. We'll talk tomorrow.